So this is the chassis of the Daimler Dart from the parts manual, and obviously it's the front end with the front suspension axle fits across here, mounts for the shock absorbers, the lever arm shock absorbers. But the focus today is on this strap. There's a strap here which bolts to the chassis in these positions either side, and the axle fits through the loop, and it prevents the excess movement of the axle. Basically, on the bump it hits this rubber buffer, and on the rebound it hits these two rubber buffers. So this is a steel strap with metalastic bonded rubber parts, say at these three positions. The trouble is that these metalastic straps aren't available any longer, haven't been for years. When I rebuilt my car 40 odd years ago, all I was able to get was this plain steel strap. So at the moment I've got an exhaust mount rubber in the top. On the bottom I just put a piece of conveyor belt, a rectangle of conveyor belt between the chassis and the strap. So far from ideal, and I get a thud every time on the rebound. Not very often, but occasionally, especially on speed bumps, I get a thud as the axle hits the conveyor belt, and it just makes a noise. The bump is kind of okay because the exhaust buffer catches that. And in fact, there's actually very little indication that the axle ever touches the bump rubber. Anyway, I wanted to have a look at this Rebound ones in particular, so I thought I'd have a go at making some myself. Just to emphasize the point, this is the David Manners website, and they do list the rear axle strap for the Dart, and it's the steel strap again with some kind of foam or rubber in the top here, which I think is just glued in or held in somehow. It's not the original metalastic bonded rubber part, and there's nothing down here for the Rebound. So yeah, that's pretty much what I bought, say 40 years ago, just a plain strap with this foam thing added. So yeah, not ideal. So hence I'm going to have a go myself. So this is the part I've come up with, designed in OpenSCAD. I'll put a link to it on Thingiverse in the description. So yeah, the idea is that this V, the axle will sit in this V, and the two sides have cutouts for the steel strap to fit in. So the strap will be on the chassis here, come up through the slot, over, back down into this slot, and then back down, bolted to the chassis. So my plan is to make this out of TPU elastomer filament. So if I add in the axle, just as a construction object, then that's where the axle will sit. That's how big it is, 58 millimeters diameter. So yeah, there's this much space for it to rebound before it hits the rubber, in which case it'll get cushioned hopefully, rather than slamming into the conveyor belt that I used to have down here against the face of the chassis. So this is the rendered part. So yeah, it looks okay. So I'll print this in 50% fill and give it a try. So this is printing happily, TPU. It's at 50% fill. I can see the pattern on there, but it's only 50% of the volume is being filled with TPU, except for the outside skin, which is 0.8 millimeters, I think. So it's going to take another 7 hours or so to finish printing. Right, this is finished printing now, and I've taken the strap off the car. So I've got this slightly dodgy exhaust system hanger that's kind of been on there for 20 years or so, and seems to be doing okay. It doesn't, it seems to doesn't bang when you go over a bump. So it does actually seem to work pretty well. But I say down the bottom here, I've just had a piece of conveyor belting on the chassis, so that does make a definite thud on the rebound. But yeah, this part I've just printed, it does fit pretty well, which is good. These slots fit around the strap. They're difficult to get on, that's the only thing, which is one of the reasons I took this strap off. I've printed a second one. I'm in the process of printing a second one, which will have a slightly wider gap here, which might make it easier to get on. But yeah, I think if I can get this around the axle now, then getting the second side on should be feasible. Because this is actually pretty tough. This stuff, I've come to realise. You can leave it on with a screwdriver and get it over the strap without too much trouble. It doesn't actually break or anything, so that's okay. The only other concern I've got is that this 50% fill, this is still pretty rigid, more so than I was expecting. There's not much give in it, so maybe a lower fill ratio would be better. But then again, the thing might fall to bits along the sort of join lines with the filament not bonding 100% homogeneously. But worth a try. I think I'm going to try and put this one on and try it on the car. Yeah, so I'll put the second one on as well. I won't run it with just one. I've run it with two so that the axle is evenly supported. But yeah, interesting. We'll see. It was a bit of a nightmare getting that on, but it is now on. I see this is the TPU part with its V underneath the axle, and the wraparound is on the strap, the steel strap. I had to use this clamp to push the strap together to help me get it into these cutouts in the 3D printed part. But it looks to be in now. I just need to bolt it back down to the chassis and see how it performs on the road. Before I bolt down the strap, these are the bolts that is holding the strap down. I filled my chassis with foam, polyurethane foam, years ago, so there's no water ingress from the inside the chassis itself. But these bolts are a bit rusty, so I'm just going to run this tap down them, just clean up the threads before I put them back in. The new TPU part is now installed. I've bolted the strap back down, put the Loctite on the threads to protect against corrosion primarily, but also to stop them from dropping out. So yeah, it's currently sitting. The axle's currently sitting in the V because it's got no weight on the, or it's been jacked up on the chassis, so the wheel's fully dropped. Yeah, the other thing worth noting perhaps is that on this top surface here, there's still loads of oily crud, but there's no sign of it touching this bump stop at all. So it looks as if, you know, over the last 40 years basically, this arrangement has sort of worked okay with minimal contact with the axle. It does thump sometimes over bumps, but that is obviously the rebound and the axle banging on this conveyor belt and onto the chassis, which is it's not terrible, but you can definitely feel a thump occasionally on uneven roads. So hopefully it'll be interesting to see how this TPU thing compares. I wouldn't have gone this route at all. I'm just going to potentially risky using some dodgy 3D printed part, but the fact that I know that it's been working for so long with just this conveyor belt, I'm quite happy to give this a go. I mean, it could well just drop out, but we'll see. I'm printing one for the other side, and we'll fit that. I don't want to run the car with only one on, so you want to keep it balanced. So if it does bang into the rebound stops, then both sides are hitting the same thing basically, and it's not rocking from one side to the other. Okay, I'll get the other one printed and fitted, and we'll see how it goes. So this is finished printing, and just get it off the bed. There we go. For some reason, it produces these stringy bits as it traverses across between the two sides. But I'll cut that out if I can virtually tear it out. I'll trim it with a knife, but that's fine. This one's identical to the last, except that this dimension is shorter across here, so it's clinging onto the axle strap less securely, but it should make it fit on more easily, is my thinking. So I'll give that a try. So I'll put one of these, this one on the near side, and the other one is already on the off side. So yeah, we'll see how it works, whether it just drops straight off or whether it doesn't provide enough resilience to support the axle or whatever. Anyway, we'll give it a go. Right, I've got a second V-shaped block printed, 50% fill, and I've actually reduced the distance that these parts extend back into the far side of the strap. So that should make it easier to get on. Also make it easy to drop out, of course, but we'll see. So I'm just I've got an axle stand under the axle. If I just drop down this jack, it should take the weight of the car on the axle stand and lift the axle off the chassis. Let me get there we go, give me room to get the block underneath. Right, let's give that a go. See if I can get this in without having to take the strap off, which is what I did on the other side. Okay, so that is now in. It was actually relatively easy to get in this time. I think making this extension around the side shorter has made all the difference. The only trouble, of course, is whether it's gone so far that the thing just drops out. But it's looking good. It's gripped on pretty well. The gap for the thickness of the strap looks to be about right. And leaving it in with screwdrivers, flat-headed screwdrivers, didn't seem to damage the TPU print. So it's pretty tough, I think. It's taken some abuse. Same on the other side. That took some getting in and say leverage with screwdrivers and such like. So it does seem pretty tough. So I'll jack it up now, back off the axle stand, take the load on it, and get the wheel back on, and then take it for a few test drives. Back from a 50-mile trip over mostly B roads, but over some speed bumps as well, and everything seems to be fine. The rebound rubbers are still there, and they definitely make a difference. The biggest problem was in the past going over short speed bumps, and as you drop off the speed bump, it would hit the rebound buffer. If there wasn't one, it would hit the chassis through a piece of conveyor belting. So that has definitely gone. That thump I used to get has definitely gone. So that was the only time I noticed it really, was over speed bumps. But yeah, so far so good. So yeah, this idea of 3D printing TPU buffers does seem to work. I'll post the CAD file and the STL files onto Thingiverse if anybody else wants to give it a try. I'll report back later if anything changes. But so far so good. I'm quite pleased. Thanks for watching.